Hi, everyone, and welcome to the EA Campus Open House. I'm Nicky Christmas, founder of the EA Campus and Practically Perfect PA, and I'm so pleased to have so many of you joining us live for this fantastic Q&A with the brilliant Monique Helstrom. If you've not heard Monique speak before, then you are in for an absolute treat today. So thank you, everybody who's already said hello on the chat. This is going to be an interactive Q&A today, so I would love for you to let us know where you're from, and if you do have any questions for Monique throughout the course of this Q&A, then please do pop them in the chat and let us know what you would like to have answered. So I'm going to let Monique introduce herself. But before I do, I want to make sure, as I said, that we have plenty of questions pouring in from you tonight. So pop them in the chat and I will make sure to ask them, and Monique will share her thoughts. So I'm going to bring Monique onto the stage. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Nicky. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm chilly in Colorado, but very good.
Well, it's a good thing that you're indoors.
Yes.
So I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career to date. As I was saying to you earlier, I absolutely love that you refer to your ability to unlock human potential, because I really do think that's something that assistants really probably have the potential to have. They just need to unlock it in themselves first. So please do, Monique, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Monique Helstrom. I consider myself a speaker, an activator, and yes, an unlocker of human potential. My purpose in life has always been to help people evolve and help people get to their next level. It's something that I consider myself almost obsessed with. I'm obsessed with my own self-development, and I'm obsessed with helping everyone else develop themselves and grow and build and evolve and become the human they were always meant to be. So that's a little overview of who I am as far as my career is concerned. I've always been a heavy type A. I've always been very dominant in my abilities. I've taken lots of personality tests in order to understand who I am. And so I've always been in a logistical type of job. I've always been the builder to the architect. I've always been the person who is the doer of the things, not the strategy, not the thinker, not the big ideas person. And I love that position. You know, it was a struggle for a while, but happy to be in it and happy to be here with you all today.
Oh, I really strive to be a type A person. It's a goal for life for sure. I'm more of a
Hey,
B plus
we're
person.
all a little different. We all have different strengths. We all have different bonuses to our life, and somebody out there is wishing that they were just like you. So don't worry.
I'm not sure about that, but thanks for it. As I said, we've got around about an hour today. Monique really can talk about anything to do with the assistant career. I'm sure you've seen it, done it, have the t-shirt. So if you do have any questions from Monique, as I said, do pop them in the chat and I'll make sure to ask them. But I wanted to start with a topic that I know is really close to your heart, and that is communication, because ultimately that is at the heart and foundation of the role as an assistant.
Oh, yes.
So, and as we've talked about different personality types as well, I wondered how you have gone about in your career authentically being yourself and having the confidence to communicate as your authentic self.
Sure. So, my journey was one like a lot of people. I fell down a lot. I grew up with poor communicators in my household, and it's something that we're not taught. This is one of those lessons that we're never taught in school. So you learn it either from your parents or from your teachers or from your colleagues once you get old enough. And again, we're all just sort of knocking our heads against the wall because no one's really been taught how to do it. So I went on my own personal journey. I studied it in college and kept going with my journey. I think the biggest change for me, where I got over the hump, is when I started to learn more about myself, when I started to take those personality tests, when I started to understand who I was, what my strengths were, what my weaknesses are, most certainly what my tendencies are. So that's what I got from these personality tests, is what do I tend to do? How do I tend to react in certain situations? Once you bring that to your forefront, you have a better ability to control yourself. We all have to control ourselves. Sorry to land that on you so early in our Q&A, but it all starts with you, and it is all about you. And yes, you have the ability to change, and yes, people can change. So knowing who you are is the foundation for healthy communication. I know that I'm a type A. I know that I'm an activator. I know I'm a D dominant and disc. I understand these things. This helps me understand what my tendencies are, that I can tend to come in like a bull in a china shop and run meetings like an army sergeant, boom, 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 because I'm that type A, because I am someone who tends to operate in that manner. So now that I have that foundation, I understand who I was, gave me the confidence to be able to communicate authentically with who I am and not apologize. And I also have the ability now to flex when I'm around people who aren't like me. So both of those gave me utter confidence to be able to freely speak for who I am, and it gave me the confidence to be able to know where I needed to flex, where I needed to bend, depending on who I was around.
Yeah, I think that's so important, isn't it, for assistance? It is absolutely understanding yourself and having that self-awareness is so critical in so many aspects, particularly around communication. And then, as you said, Monique, being able to change how you potentially approach somebody. Do you think it's as important to understand your executive to that extent that you understand yourself? Did you find that helpful?
1,000%. I would say if the most important thing you can do in communication is learn about yourself, the second most important thing you can do is learn about who you're surrounding yourself with. I always like to tell people to start with their top 5, the top 5 people that they're surrounding yourself with. Get to know them more than just what you already know about them. One of the phrases that I use a lot is be a spy. Look at your executive, be a spy, understand, identify what makes them tick. When are they in a good mood? When are they in a bad mood? What helps them get energy? When they leave XYZ meeting, are they completely drained? This is not terribly hard to figure out if we really put on our bifocal glasses and watch and observe and spy on our executives and understand how they behave. If you can possibly have them take some personality tests, I wholeheartedly think that's a great idea as well. When I worked with Simon, the entire company did StrengthsFinder, CliftonStrengths, and man, that just changed how I communicated with everyone. I had a little notebook, and I would have a piece of paper where I had everyone's strengths outlined on there. So whenever I was going into a meeting with my salesperson or my marketing person or even Simon, I would read their strengths first and say, okay, he's strategic, he's futuristic, he's got ideation in there. I need to talk about everything in a future state so that he can hear me. Communication is not about what we say, it's about what people hear. Communication is on the listener's terms. So the more we can talk in a manner in which other people can understand us, the more we'll be understood.
Why don't you let us know in the chat, sorry, Monique, let us know in the chat if anybody else has done this level of detail around personality tests and understanding themselves and everybody else in the business, because wow, how helpful is that?
It changed how I operated with Simon. And again, I thought I knew him by what I knew of him and by his, his strengths and his weaknesses and just some of the things that I observed. But when I really took the time and the attention to identify what his tendencies were, what were really his strengths under the surface, what drained him, what didn't drain him, that's when our relationship really took off.
And I suppose then you can plan their day so much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Regardless of whether he wanted to call at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, I knew him well enough to know that that wasn't a good idea. So I was able to plan his schedule. I was able to plan my own schedule based off of what I knew and how we operated together.
So we just got some feedback coming in from the chat and just saying, yes, not for a while, haven't done it. Some people have done the Enneagram personality test.
Love Enneagram.
Yeah, and what else? Strength finders. Yep, I've done strength finders before, and that went out to my entire family, the document that I received back.
Absolutely. At one point I put my strengths finders on my dating profile, on my online dating profile. It didn't work out as well as I had hoped, but it was an idea.
No, it should be though, shouldn't it?
I thought so. I was like, if you could read that I'm an activator, that I've got these things, and if you're okay with that, then you're my guy. But
Yeah.
didn't work out.
Tracy has said it's one of my objectives for this year to understand my executive and team better and when they work best. I think it'll be great, Tracy, to get some feedback on how that goes later in the year, because I think you'll really notice the difference for sure.
Absolutely. There's a number of different tests you can take. Some are easier than others. A super easy one is love languages. And I know that sounds a little weird because we're at work, but man, knowing how somebody feels safe and supported and loved is really a key to understanding who they are. I have my friends take it. I've had folks in relationships take it, because if I know that words of affirmation is what helps you feel loved and safe and supported, well, then I'm going to do that more in order for us to connect. And I tell people what mine is.
Yeah, I think that one is really fascinating. I found that so interesting. Shouting at my other half to load the dishwasher is not how he likes to be loved. I found out. Doesn't work. So I want to talk a little bit about the partnership that you had with Simon. How did you start to build trust with him? Was it a long time coming, or was it something that you managed to work through pretty quickly?
I mean, it depends on what you think of as a long time. It seemed like a long time for me, but we started like anyone starts. You get to know each other. This is a relationship. I mean, let's just be honest. You with your executive, it is a fully functioning relationship, and it should be. So what do you do when you're in a new relationship? You got to get to know each other. There's this push and this pull and this back and forth, this dance that you go through where you're moving in, and then you're like, whoa, I went too far. I asked the wrong question. Okay, got it. And then you push in a little bit more, and it's this getting to know you dance that we do with new friends and new relationships, but somehow we don't equate new work partnerships with doing just that. So thankfully I did go in and understood that there was going to be a period of about a year where we were just getting to know who we were, getting to know each other, getting to know how we act and how we react to situations. And then throughout the course, getting to know moving forward, two things that I did that really changed our relationship. One was breaking out of just the content circle and only looking and understanding at what the content was, what were the tasks that he was giving me, what were the things that I needed to do. When I was able to finally get above that, and when I was finally able to ask for the context around what was happening, around why I was doing certain things, around who were these participants and who was the people involved and why did you need it on that day. When I finally started to be able to zoom out a little bit, that's when I really, for lack of a better word, got deeper into the organization and got deeper into what I was needing to do. And it took me to a new level. I understood more. I was able to zoom out and zoom in. And so, this is something that you can't rush. This is something you have to get used to when you're in a new partnership and a new organization. It's going to take time. You have to do that dance. You have to live in content only world for a little while until you get used to it. And then you'll know once you want to get out of that loop, once you're ready for more, to start asking some bigger questions, start getting involved in more things, start inserting yourself and giving offering solutions. That was really the second thing that I did that brought me to a different level, was instead of just coming to Simon with every single problem that I had, I would offer solutions instead of just problems. We tend to want to go, I don't know how to do this. And we drop a bag of junk on somebody's desk and we are waiting for them to solve our issue. Instead, I would say, I'm having this issue. Here are some of the ways that I think we should solve it. I plan on doing this. What are your thoughts? So I was coming with more confidence, more attention, and more planning, more strategy behind what I was doing, rather than just coming and saying, I don't know how to do it. I don't have the information. So-and-so didn't give it to me. I let go of all the excuses, and you have to dive in deep.
Was there anything in particular that made that jump for you? Was it a process over time of just simply becoming more confident in the role, or was there something that happened, or just a mindset shift that made you think, okay, I'm ready to zoom out now? Because I think so many assistants get to that point where they are absolutely confident in the task-based work that they do, but sometimes struggle to make that jump. And sometimes it's a confidence issue. But I wondered if there was something in particular where you thought, I'm ready now.
Actually, yeah, there was I don't call it an incident because it wasn't a bad thing. But I was always a little insecure about my skills and insecure about my personality. I'm extremely type A. I'm extremely detail oriented. My pendulum is really far on one side. I've since been able to play both sides, but we're talking 11 years ago now. So I was extremely type A. I was always on that side of things. And I felt like my skill set was very narrow. I knew I was good at the job. I knew how to do it. But I wasn't confident in who I was in order to stand tall and say, I am a type A. I am an activator. I am good at what I do, and I'm worthy of being here. That hadn't happened yet. So I was very insecure, kind of knocking around a little bit. And I remember saying to Simon one day, I wish I was more like you. I wish I was more strategic. I wish I had a bigger thinking instead of just doing. I feel like my skill set is so narrow. And as his wonderful human being did, he sort of laughed at me and he said, Monique, he said, people like me can't get anything done without people like you. I mean, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said, look, we just want to get things done. You are the one who helps us get from point A to point B. And it's bigger than just what you're doing. You're helping my organization move forward. And I just stood there looking at him like, oh my goodness. And unfortunately, it took somebody else to help recognize and appreciate what I was doing in order for me to get that jump. But I'm not saying that's the only way to go about doing it. You can understand and realize that nothing in the world is going to get done without the builders. Can't have a world of all architects. We have to have builders. We have to have people like us. We have to have all the different yummy and juicy personality types that there are out there. We're all important. So it's now time for us to own it. Own who you are, love who you are, move forward with it instead of wishing that you were taller or smarter, or I could do this, or I read more, or I wish I could play basketball, whatever. Just be who you are and drink it all up.
It's really interesting, that moment of vulnerability where you said that led to so much for you. Yeah. It's amazing what that can do when you can just open yourself up to a person and get that in return. I think that's thank you for that. It's such a wonderful thing. And I think so many assistants can take that away because those skills are all there for them. It's just that one thing to take them to that next level for sure. Yeah. We've had some questions come in, one in particular from Beverly that I wanted to run past you. Let me just pop that up so everyone can see it. So Beverly has asked, how does an EA transition to a chief of staff position? Because I know your title was Chief of Simon, wasn't it? So I know that you've got experience in that area. So any tips that you can share on that one?
Sure. As I mentioned before, the content and context was extremely important from my transition from the doer to being true and tried Chief of Simon. Understanding and asking for the context around all of the content got me involved in more things. I understood the players. I understood what was happening. I could zoom out a little bit more internally. For me, that helped me grow, get me to my next step. After that was really getting more involved in some of the things that he was more involved in, getting involved in more than just calendar and expenses and travel and some of the things that I was doing. I forced my way a little bit into participating in other meetings, started traveling with him. I sort of navigated my way into his world and got deeper, and that was intentional. I was very, very, very intentional. I was not sitting back and waiting for someone to recognize that I was a really good worker and that I needed to be promoted. I was head first. I was trying, and I was getting involved, and that it just opened up a whole different world for me. It opened up different experiences, and I became the chief of staff before I became the chief of staff, before my title was that. I was embodying and living that role, whether or not my title said it anyway. Title schmitles. I mean, whatever. Be it, do it, own it, love it. Be the chief of staff.
I think as well, it's so important to be as passionate about the work as the CEO is, because I think that common experience that you have, if you are as in it as they are and you are a part of the mission, then that helps so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a quote once that said the executive and the assistant are responsible for the exact same job. There's just different tasks in order to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, is that true? You are responsible for the same things. You just have a different set of tasks. He or she has a different set of tasks. That's really it. You just see things from different sides.
Yeah. We had a question earlier that was emailed into us that I want to ask Monique, and we are jumping around today. So if you do have any questions, we really can cover everything. Just pop them in the chat and I'll make sure to ask them. But we did have a question emailed in, which was around micromanagers. And for assistants, I know that is always a struggle. So I wondered if you had any advice for assistants who work with micromanagers or work in teams of micromanagers.
Yeah. So you're probably not going to like the answer, but you have to be vulnerable and you have to have a tough conversation. You have to have that sticky, hard, awful conversation where you sit down with someone, you plan a meeting, you schedule the meeting about your working relationship, and you sit down and you ask questions. What is it about my performance that's making you feel like you have to pay more attention to the details? What can I do to break out of that? Ask the questions and directly address the fact that this is happening. We so often just put our backs up against the wall and we're, and that it isn't helping the situation whatsoever. That isn't helping us move forward. Have the hard conversation, ask what's going on. Is there something that I can do to build trust with you that would help us move forward in this instance? Bring some suggestions. This is how I would like to do it. If your manager wants to read over every single email that you've typed out, say, okay, why don't we try this? I will bundle all of my emails. I will CC you on everything, or maybe you can read the emails that are only going externally and I will be able to send anyone's internally. What is that next step? Where can we go to start building that trust? Again, think about this like a relationship. How would you build trust with a partner, a significant other, with a friend? You would try, you would move forward, you would be vulnerable, show your underbelly, those types of things. Be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's often there's something in them that needs to control the situation. It's very rarely the assistant.
Oh yeah.
It's the other way around, and it's trying to unpick why. And again, it's that self-awareness, isn't it? If you understand where you're coming from and what you can do, then you can do quite a good job of advertising your skills to somebody who needs to kind of be sold to and turned around in that sense. I think it's, as you said, tough conversation to have, but it needs to be done.
It does. It needs to be done. And just like you said, rarely does it actually have to do with you as the assistant. Most of this is insecurity from them. They're probably getting hammered from their higher ups and their superiors. So even just the simple question, hey, you okay? Is everything okay? What can I do to help you? It seems like you're extremely stressed right now, and I want to be able to take that off of you. Are you all right? Maybe nobody's asked him or her that in a long time.
Yeah, it's lonely at the top for sure. We have a question from Annie. Again, I'll pin it up so that everyone can see it. Annie says, this may be a basic question. There are no basic questions, so please, if you feel like you also have a basic question to ask. I'm in my first job after graduating college. What's your number one tip for beginning assistants to grow and gain confidence?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'll give you two answers. You have to know who you are. You have to know what your strengths and your capabilities are. The only way we can become confident is to do things that we're good at. That's where confidence comes from. It's not from picking up a basketball one day, making one shot, and you're like, oh, I'm now confident in being a basketball player. No, it's from doing things over and over and over and over again. The things that you are good at, do those over and over and over again. So knowing what you are just a rock star at and continue to do them, that's going to build your confidence. That's going to build your awareness level, your internal awareness level. So you have to start there. You have to understand who you are in order to know where your best direction is, where your natural best is. And then work on your communication. Again, communication is something that just happens, and we think it's all about what we say. The more you can apply your communication globally and speak to people in a manner in which everyone can understand, the faster your career will progress. It's just how that happens. Communication, communication, communication.
Yeah. I'd add as well to that, Monique, I think it's really important for assistants who are just starting out to observe. And I know sometimes that can be really difficult because it is a fast-paced job. And I remember when I first became an assistant, you are dropped in at the deep end.
Yes.
It's almost one of those jobs where you're just expected to know how to do it without a huge amount of training, a huge amount of help. You're dropped into a position with the very busy executive, and you have to hit the floor running. But I would say try and take some time to observe others. And if it means asking another assistant to help with some mentorship, that's always quite handy. You'll learn a lot from other assistants that have been in the job for a while. Ask questions on forums like this, and just observe how your executive operates, because you'll learn a lot from that.
Absolutely. You will, neither of us have been taught how to do this job. Assistants are never taught how to do this. Executives are not taught how to have an assistant. So this is a very new partnership, a very new relationship. Also pay attention to what you're given. If you are CC'd on emails, read them, understand them, take them in, ask questions. Who's Mary? Why did you send that to Bob? What's going on? Get involved. So often we feel like this job is transactional. You give me a task, I give it back. You give me a task, I give it back. And you're just on this hamster wheel. Read, pay attention, ask questions, get involved, dig yourself deeper. Again, this is intentional. And that's a great way to grow and gain confidence.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for the question, Annie. That's a really great one. And even if you've been in the job for a while, those tips are super helpful. We've had a question come in from Tanya. How do you build a connection with the boss that requires you to be impersonal, does not talk to you, prefers communication through email? You found out what you did wrong at a performance review.
This requires a hard conversation as well for you to sit down with them and explain to them what's happening, and explain how you work best, and explain how you operate, ask questions, get involved. To be perfectly honest, there are some executives who just want that relationship to be an impersonal relationship. Again, they were never taught how to have an assistant. So just like we have to observe, a lot of times these executives, they were just really good at their job. And one day they got promoted and somebody gave them the corner office and a C in their title and said, here's Linda, she's your executive assistant, go for it. And they're like, what do I do with Linda? And most of the time, as we do, they just looked around at who was around them and saw, oh, this is how Bob is using his assistant. This is how Mary is using her assistant. Let me do that. So maybe they just don't understand. Maybe they just don't know how to use you. And it's going to take you to have that vulnerable conversation to go in and say, these are the capabilities that I have. This is the personality type that I am. I can be more to you. I can give you more. I can build this relationship with you. We can become a rock star partnership. This is what I am willing to do. This is how I am going to move forward. Are you willing to do these types of things as well? Are you willing to have a meeting with me once a week? Are you willing to have a phone call with me once a week? Maybe just nobody's asked him. At the end of the day, if he or she says, no, I want this to be an impersonal relationship and I only want to talk with you over email, you have to make the decision if this is the right job for you or not. Now, that's extremely scary to think about, but you have to be responsible for your own health and well-being, for your own evolution. And if you don't feel like you can evolve in this situation, there are plenty of other people who don't feel like that.
Yeah,
The world is waking up to what an assistant can be. The world is waking up to this profession, finally, that we are not secretaries. The world is understanding this now. And there are plenty of executives out there who don't want to treat you like you're a doorstopper.
Yeah, there's so many executives who get the power of having an assistant in a personal relationship. Sure, letting them in. Absolutely. I would just add to that. Ask for feedback, like you said, Monique. It's up to you as well to try and build those bridges, for sure. It's never easy, and I think at the moment a lot of people can hide behind Zoom calls and emails and things. It's becoming much easier in that sense to just have impersonal relationships. So sometimes it's laziness as well.
Yeah. One thing that I tell executives a lot, a mindset change, and this is actually going to go to the last question as well, is so often we operate as receivers of information, receivers of tasks. Whether or not you know a lot about American football or not, you know what a receiver on the field does. They wait. They run and they wait for the quarterback to send them a ball before anything is going to happen. That is their position, and that's how we feel ourselves. We are here to wait and catch the ball when needed. Instead, operate like a quarterback. A quarterback comes in, he knows the play, he understands what's going on, he gets into the position, he reads the line and see what is everybody else thinking, what is everybody else doing, course correct, move forward, make the play. Think of yourself as in control. You are the quarterback of this relationship. You are not second best. You are not only the receiver. You are not the task person. You are important. You do drive things forward, and we have to act like that before someone will treat us like that.
Yeah, so very true. I know we've covered this quite a bit just in the last question, but Kim's just has asked, do you have any tips for uptraining your executive when they don't fully understand the role or utilize an EA? So I wonder if you've got any tips on the conversation that has to be had.
Sure. It's a conversation that has to have over multiple conversations. This isn't one conversation that's going to change the future of your relationship with your executive. It's starting small and saying, why don't I try and take this off your plate? Why don't I take this off your plate? I would like to take this off your plate, and this is how I'm going to about doing it. Start leaning in, start moving forward, and start telling them the things that you want to be involved in and how you're going to be involved. Again, instead of just waiting for someone to say, I wonder if she wants more responsibility. That's not their responsibility to do that. You need to raise your hand and say, I want more responsibility. So go into that conversation. Instead of saying, you need to treat me better, start acting better. Just start doing it. I would like to be involved in. I would like to start planning the annual conference. I would like to travel with you to Chicago because I want to know what's going on. Lean in. Let them know what your capabilities are is one way to go about it. Second of all, letting them know what the role of an executive assistant is. One person is in the sky, one person is on the ground. There has to be both. And one thing that I said, Simon, a long time ago, I said, look, you're the person who needs to fly over top of the forest and look down at it from the big picture, from the strategy side, and understand what is going on, what is happening down in this forest. My job is to walk through and go, that's their tree, that's over there, that's over there. We are the detail people. We see things from a different perspective. And he was like, oh, that's an interesting way of going about it. I did the same thing. You have to have these conversations like 8 times with them. That's okay. You have to be willing to understand that this is not something that's going to change on a dime. The other thing that I did, and a specific intangible thing that I did, was going into meetings, was joining meetings with him. And that really brought me to another level where I was actually able to get involved. And how I did that was I said, look, you go into these meetings, Simon, and you come out with, 1 or 2 action items that has to be done. And you come over to me and you say, these are the action items that need to be done. And I said, but that's not your strong suit. You're not someone who needs to or should be going into these meetings to write down every single task that needs to happen. So that's my job. And that's what I love to do. So why don't you go into the meeting and be the best version of you, your strategic, your futuristic, your ideation self. I'm going to go in there and be my best version of myself as an activator, as someone who likes detail. And it took a little while for me to get into that first meeting. But once I left that first meeting and he looked at me and he said, okay, did you get the 2 action items? I said, 2, I've got 9. I've got 9 action items. And he was like, that's amazing. And so we just started to do that over and over and over again. Nothing's going to change overnight. You have to be intentional and move forward.
Yeah, that's it's one of the things I talk about all the time is making the most of meetings as well. You can absolutely showcase your skills and your value once you get into a meeting, exactly like you said, Monique. So I know assistants that go into meetings, take the actions for their executive, and then by the time the meeting's over, they're on the laptop and they've actioned 3 of them. And can come back before the meeting's finished and said, oh, by the way, I've set up a meeting with so-and-so, that's already in the it's amazing what can happen when you have those conversations with your executive about the benefit of you being in the meeting with them. And then you get that oversight. It kind of one leads into the other, and it's amazing how quickly you'll start to notice how much you've developed just by that one conversation of let me come to the meeting.
I don't even have a number to give you to tell you how many times I've talked to assistants who said, oh, I would never be allowed in a meeting. That's never going to happen. I would never be allowed. And I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask if you can be in the meeting. I want you to raise your hand and I want you to ask. And if the answer is no, I want you to come back and tell me. I would say 75% of them go into the meetings.
Yeah.
They just never asked.
Yeah. Yep.
Intentional.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some other questions around personal development, and I'm going to come back to those at the end because we can talk about some of the things that you do, Monique, and I can talk a little bit about some of the EA campus stuff and then our thoughts around career development in general. But I want to come on to Natalie's question, so I'll just pop that up. And it's around EA reporting structures, which I think is something something I think we're going to end up talking a lot more about this year because it seems to be shifting. And Natalie has said, is it typical for an EA to report to HR versus the executive they support? Monique, any thoughts on that?
It's different in every organization. Some report to their executives. Some have little pods of admin groups and they have an admin leader and they actually report into an admin leader instead. I've had executive assistants report into like marketing for some bizarre reason. I think it's just whatever the organization, whatever their reporting structure is, as long as it's working for you and you're able to do your job in an effective way. I've seen that before where you're not exactly reporting to your executive. And honestly, sometimes that helps. Because if you're working directly with the executive and you're reporting directly to them, and again, they don't know what we do and how we go about doing it. So we're reporting to someone who doesn't necessarily understand who we are and what we do. I personally think it would be better to report out to a head admin leader or maybe someone in HR who understands the job better. So then they can understand what you go through.
Yeah. I'd say as well, it's just always worth remembering that you don't work for your executive. If you're in an big organization, you don't work for them. You both work for the organization. So really, whatever the organization structure is, it's always worth remembering that as an assistant because it can be so easily forgotten when you're constantly saying, I work for, and then you name the executive, not the organization. So it's always worth remembering that for sure. Hannah's got a question, which I think is a good one. My executive don't praise readily, although I know they appreciate me, but I thrive off positive reinforcement. Tips for putting ego aside, from Hannah.
Sure. So I would do 2 things. First, let me go about this the other way. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to give you a higher level. So one thing we need to understand is that there's many types of appreciation and recognition and thanks. We always want to look up to our executives in order to be validated, in order to feel worthy to be who we are. First and foremost, nobody can validate you. Validation comes from within, period, and sentence. Only you can validate yourself as a worthy human being. Now, you can want to receive recognition and appreciation. That's completely okay, but know what you're looking for before you go into it. If you're looking for validation from your executives, you will never get it. Validation comes from within. If you want to be recognized, that's a different story. As I mentioned in the last question, really wanting it's a little insane for us to want to look up to an executive and really get deep and meaningful recognition statements, because again, they don't know what we do. They don't know all the mushy gushy ins and outs of what we're doing in order to say, great job booking that flight. I'm sure it took you 6 different times and 4 different websites and 3 different credit cards and and thank you for dealing with my missed flight the other day. They don't understand. So we're looking up to someone who couldn't do our job if a gun was pointed to their heads, and we want feedback and we want recognition from there. So one change that I made was looking for recognition and appreciation from my peers instead of looking up. When I needed something and I did something great, I would call an EA friend of mine and say, you have no idea what I just did. 5 people missed a flight and I got them to where they needed to be on time with no hiccups, with no headaches. And she was like, oh my God, that's amazing. You did such a good work, blah, blah, blah. That's where I'm getting my appreciation and recognition from. It's from my sisters and brothers in this job and my sisters and brothers around us. That's what the joy of joining in with groups like you, Nick, with your group, Nikki, is being around each other and being with like-minded people instead of looking up to somebody who has no idea what you've done or what you're doing in order to get that recognition and validation and appreciation. So that's one way. Within yourself, again, it's confidence. You have to continue to do what you are good at over and over and over again. And that's where confidence builds from the inside. Stop looking at your weaknesses and try to pull them up to your strengths. Focus on your strengths. Focus on what you're good at and continue to do them. So you'll get to the point eventually where you're like, I know I'm a good worker. I know I'm great at this and that and the other. I don't need recognition. I know I'm stellar. So those are 2 suggestions that I have there.
Yeah, sure. And also maybe put a note in their diary on like a Tuesday afternoon to celebrate you, Hannah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, ask for it, you know. We want recognition, but we rarely ever say. I mean, you can even go up to your executive and say, guess what? My love language is words of affirmation. You know, this is what it means. I'm going to send you a little paragraph in your email, and words of affirmation is really important to me. Is this something that you'd be willing to help me with?
Yeah, I did something awesome today. I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to say thank you.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I've definitely done that. I've definitely gone up to Simon and been like, you have no idea what I just did. It took me 4 days to figure out how to get you to blah, 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 blah. And I'm just letting you know that I'm a rock star. Cool, great.
Yeah, you're very lucky to have me.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Alona. I have to set SMART objectives twice a year. I don't think you're alone there at all. Something I struggle to come up with original ones. Do you have any tips, especially when you've been in the organization for quite some time?
Is this personal objectives? I'm assuming these are personal goals and objectives.
I would assume for the career development, it's that time of year, isn't it? Personal and career development time. So yeah, I would imagine it's the yearly objectives that you have to set. Yeah.
You know, it's a struggle to come up with new goals. You know, every January 1st, we're supposed to come up with new goals personally. And then every quarter, we're supposed to come up with new goals in our organizations. And I personally don't think there's anything wrong with continuing an old SMART objective, an old goal that you've had before that maybe you haven't reached, or maybe that has morphed and evolved itself, and using that again for your next objective. So if one of your objectives was to learn how to be a better listener, well, how can you amplify that? How can you bring that up a level? What is the next step to that? So take some of the goals that you already have, maybe that you have accomplished or that you are working on, what's the next step? Do more of what you're already doing instead of coming up with something completely original, something totally new. You can't always come up with new goals and objectives. Sometimes you still want to just continue on and build more on what you've already done. So maybe evolve with the goals and objectives that you have, and evolve the goals and objectives.
There's always that goal that you can set with it, which is, I want to develop the skills that I already have. I want to be a better version of me, and that's something you really shouldn't shy away from. Like you said, it's not a case of it's not copying or not coming up with anything more creative. It's a goal, and if that goal needs to continue,
absolutely,
then that's fine. I would just, we've got a SMART objectives template on Practically Perfect PA, which has a list of examples. So if you are struggling, you haven't looked at that before, I'd recommend that. It's one of our most popular downloads, actually, and it's free. So if you want to jump on Practically Perfect PA and grab that, then please do. Kieran has a very good question, which I think we could use to sum up before we talk a little bit about personal development. And that is, what's been key and helpful to your learning, growing, and upskilling as an assistant? Was there anything in particular that sort of helped you develop?
Developing myself personally was the thing that helped me be the best EA that there ever was. Doing things that I love, taking care of myself, doing that self-care, being the best version of myself, that helped me grow in leaps and bounds in my professional arena. We are not different people at work than we are at home. We have one brain and one head and one body. We should not have to flex completely so that our work person is completely different than our at-home person. If you feel like you have to be that and be two different people, there's a problem, and that's something that needs to be solved before you can grow as an individual. So develop yourself personally, read more, learn more, do some things, take care of yourself, have that self-care routine. That's going to help you learn and grow in your skill set with an EA. And then mentorship, find other people out there who have done what you have done, who you look up to, and ask them questions and read their books and watch their podcasts and learn from other people and join in on things like this and join in with the group at Practically Perfect PA. That is going to help you learn and grow your skills as an EA. If you have a learning budget, if you are one of the lucky people out there that has a learning and development budget, use it. Use every single penny. Don't leave $1 in that account. If there's $99 in that account, go on to LinkedIn Learning and find a $99 class. Keep going. Don't lose that money. That is money for you that you can use and develop. And if you don't have a learning and development budget, there's so many things on the internet that you can learn, and podcasts, and, Be the Ultimate Assistant with Bonnie Lowe Creaman and Jeremy Burrows and all of these guys. They have amazing tips out there. You have to be the one to go out there and do it.
Was there anything that you took up in terms of your career development that you saw a big shift or a big change in your learning? Is there any kind of resources that you could recommend today?
Let's see. Well, my communications journey really changed my entire life. Starting to read books like Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott, or Critical Conversations by Patterson and somebody that I can't remember. It's called Crucial Conversations. Sorry, authors out there, I didn't remember who you are. I started to read those books, and that fundamentally changed my how I communicated and grew me as an executive level assistant, as a C-level assistant. So communication really was the biggest learning for me. Yoga. I have to be honest with you. Yoga help. I know I say that all the time and I get eye rolls, but I'm telling you, nothing helped me more than trying to be at peace for those 1 minute at the end of every yoga session where you have to get into Shavasana, which I used to sit there like, how long is it going to be until I can get up and go do what I need to do? And when I actually learned to take that hour for myself and do it and be silent mentally and physically, that actually helped me with my executive a lot. I was able to breathe. I was able to understand more, calm myself down.
Yeah, I think the ability to be calm, I know that it doesn't seem much, but the ability to be calm in an office that is high level and very often a stressful, kind of relentless environment, for you to be the calm person in that storm is so powerful. And however you learn to do that, either it's through yoga or meditation, or you just develop an ability to kind of live above that sort of noise, is so impactful as an assistant. I completely agree with you. It's unbelievable how much confidence people get in calm people. Yeah, it's a real
meditation.
testament.
I mean, you hit on that. Meditation changed my entire life as well. Just helped me. I could deal with so many more situations than I ever could before.
Yeah. On the chat, people are, as we were recommending some books, people are popping them into the chat. So yeah, if there are any book recommendations that you have, then please do put them in the chat for sure. There's so many great career development books out there that are beneficial for assistants. I'd also say make sure that you're reading what your executive reads. That really helps. Get involved in what they're thinking through and reading and implementing into their work life. Because not only does it give you an understanding of what they do, it helps you build those personal, relationships, because you can have conversations around what the other person's reading.
Yep. Leadership books, Simon Sinek books, Malcolm Gladwell books, Seth Godin books, read them all. Even personal books, I read like The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and that fundamentally changed my life as well. It doesn't just have to be work-focused books. It can be personal development as well. Everything will help you be a better version of yourself.
Yeah. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So if there are any questions, I'll try and get through them. If you can pop them in the chat now. I wanted to come on as people were asking about career development. Monique, if you could just tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you're doing an amazing course around communication. So could you share with us what that entails?
Sure. I have, I call it 1.5 courses, because my second course is actually coming out in 3 weeks. Maybe 2, maybe 4, something like that. So I have one communication out now called Introduction to Effective Communication. It's 20 of my most often asked and most used communication tips. It's pretty short, it's pretty quick. It's broken up into 5 videos, easily consumable. And that's on my website, Introduction to Effective Communication. This is general about communication skills. Then my next course coming out in a few weeks is called We Need to Talk, a guide to tackling tough conversations. And this is all about how to have those hard, sticky, crucial, icky conversations. It's how to give and receive feedback, negative and positive feedback. So that's coming out in just a few weeks. And then I do my keynote speaking. I have some coaching clients that I'm working with, and I do a lot of duo coaching as well with executives and assistants.
Well, Nora's just said she can't wait for the second course. She loved your communication course. So I'd love to get you back on for those difficult conversations, because we've had training in the past on that topic, and it's something that everybody always needs. So I think I'll be inviting you back for that for sure. Just to let everybody know about the training that we offer. So this is an open house session. This is the kind of things that we do on the EA campus. It's an online community for assistants. We have events, we have coaching, we have conversations, we have a lot of stuff going on, and it's all online. It's a private, exclusive community that's slightly aside from Practically Perfect PA, but it's everything you love about Practically Perfect PA, but within a community setting. So if you would like to join us, there is a link at the top of the chat that you can use to join us and be able to attend all of our EA campus training. And Practically Perfect PA continues. It's been 10 years now that we've been running Practically Perfect PA. It's still a free online resource for assistants, tons of templates and articles and videos. And then we have our virtual summits and other events that run throughout the year. So if you do have that crucial budget, then we will always be happy to take you on any of our courses or training. So get in touch if you need anything from us. So just to finish off on some of the comments that we've got here, Monique, everybody is saying that they thoroughly recommend your training, which is lovely. We have a replay of the session. Yes, it's going to be available on YouTube. So jump on and watch that whenever you need. And for those of you who are part of the EA campus, we will top and tail it and pop it up onto the EA campus, so you'll have it there permanently to watch. Brilliant. You could, Tracy, that's brilliant. She could listen to you all day.
Oh, thank you. We don't want you, but thank you.
Why don't we end with one last question? I did say we had a little bit of time for one more. So Kieran has asked, do you have any certain workflow strategies for managing busy inboxes? I would imagine that was quite a busy inbox that you had to deal with, Monique. So last question, any tips or strategies on managing busy inboxes?
I mean, I was a big fan of folders. I was a big fan of putting everything into a folder. Everything had its little spot. Something that I did, which really helped, was I had my little notebook that everyone has, the little notebooks that they work off of. And I actually would have tabs for each person that I worked with, not topic. So I had a tab for Simon, I had a tab for our sales guy, I had a tab for our marketing person, I had a tab for my CEO. And so when I would read something and I needed to ask Simon a question, or I needed to ask him a question, instead of me holding the email or minimizing it or having to remember that I needed to do that, I wrote it on their piece of paper. As opposed to the topic, we have running notes, and then we circle what we need, or we highlight what we need, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh no, I didn't ask that question because it was 5 pages beforehand and you forgot. So anytime anything came up in a busy email inbox from a phone call, I would write it on their page, on the human person's page. And then if I get a call from Simon, he said, what do you need? I just opened up his page, boom, 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 boom. And I was able to ask all the questions that I needed, instead of going, okay, I know that I do. Let me look in my folder. Where was that question? Let me scroll down. Oh, no, that wasn't the email from. You don't want to do this with your executive. You want to have these questions ready to go. So that was something that really helped me, was having sections in my notebook for the humans that I was involved with, not the topics that I was involved with.
That's a brilliant tip. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Monique. Sure. I think that's all we've got time for tonight. Everybody's saying how amazing you are, and I have to completely agree. Really, it truly is brilliant hearing you speak. You speak with such passion and such authority. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's always great to be with you. It's always great to do these. You all had such great questions. Thank you so much for participating and for listening to me yammer on. Keep participating with Practically Perfect PA. They have such amazing educational information for you. Please continue to do so and continue to get involved.
And before we finish, Monique, why don't you let people know where they can find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, Monique Helstrom is everywhere. My website is Monique Helstrom. My social media is Monique Helstrom. I don't think there's another Monique Helstrom, so hopefully I'm the only one. Who knows? But yeah, you can connect with me on any of my socials. Everything is connected through my website. So if you want to figure out what my Facebook or my Instagram is, just go on my website, MoniqueHelstrom.com. That's how you find me.
Well, again, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We had over 100 people live with us tonight. So I so appreciate you taking the time this evening my time. Yes. It's gone dark. Again, thank you again for sharing your time with us, and take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.